Okay, so I'm going to show you basically how we make this bobbin for Stratocaster and get it to the nitro dip and essentially wind a pickup from the get-go. So these I cut on vulcanized fiber sheets. So I'll show you here. It's a different color, but they're basically sheets like this in different thicknesses. And here, it's about a 2.4 mil thickness, and then the top 1.6. So you can see it's thinner on the top, right? So different combinations depending on what you're making. But for this purpose, Stratocaster pickup, we're using Alnico 5 rod magnets. They are, if you're ever wondering about them, let me see if I can find my calipers. So you take your calipers and measure the height. Sorry, we got to go to the inches. Let's zero this out. That's millimeters. Sorry, my bad. Okay. So 650, that's the height. Other ones, for instance, you get taller magnets that kind of affects the magnetic field. And then these are 187 in terms of the diameter. It's also 195s. Those little specs, can help shape tone for some of the more science part of it. There's no wrong way to do anything. Everybody does it different. So basically, I got this little arbor press here, and I've made a bunch of jigs. So I'll show you real quick. Whoop. Of course, I'm going too fast. I'm going to screw it up. Not going. I think that went in good. Sort of. Hold on a sec. The jig should fix this. So let's see here. So I have these jigs made. I was just doing P-base. So P-base, this was a P-base jig. This is my Strat jig, which is, these ones are 0.450s in coil height. There's other ones that are, depending on the height of the coil, changes the tone as well. So just kind of lock this in by doing the end magnets. And then this is designed to have the perfect spacing for this. This is a 52 millimeter spacing for the 0.187 magnets that I just showed you. And then the height of this, thickness of it, is 0.450 inches. So now we just kind of place the rest of our magnets in here. Right? So now they're in, and they'll line up on the bottom. Everything's precise. And then that arbor press just pops them down. Now you see, because they're pressure fit, you get some of the fiber looks a bit squished. So I just like to do this on the back. Just kind of file that a bit and then repress it so that they're ensure they're in there perfectly. And then you can, that one's not quite there, so we'll give that a go. Right. So now they're all in there. You can see a few little scratch marks, but that's not a big deal because we will be dipping these in nitro, and as well as potting them, so that kind of cleans all that up. So now, again, for the height, so now it's the top piece, right? So we just line that up, and I will press that with there. You can hear them pop it to kind of fit in there a bit, and then this is just a little spacer to knock that in without damaging it. So now we clean up those pieces of fiber that have gone through. So now you have a bobbin with the 0.50 spacing, and I just have a quick cover here that I just kind of put on just to another checkpoint to make sure that nothing went cockeyed or whatnot, to make sure that these Strat covers are going to fix. So now that we have this, now you can see we have a Strat bobbin with Alnico 5s. Now, depending on what we're doing, we could have done different heights for like staggered. We could have done Alnico 2s, 3s, you know, whatever ones you want to get. But now I'm going to show you the next stage of this, which is going to be, hold on here. So this is just to hold it, little coat hanger here, as you can see. So now I have a nitro dip solution, which is some lacquer thinner mixture with nitrocellulose. Then I take the pickup and I dip it in the nitro. Trying to refill this, is getting low, but for this purpose you can see what's going on, and then shake it off, right? And then I just hang it there. And you can see as well, I've got some P-base ones I did earlier that are hanging there. And these will dry for 24 hours. So now, if you can see here, I just take some paper towel and just kind of, it'll blob up on the magnet, so you don't really want that. And the purpose of this is going to lock this in. The bobbin becomes much more stable with the nitro soaking through everything. And then the other factors on the magnets, rather than using like tape or something on there, you know, this is going to create that insulation on the magnet, so that when you're winding and you're putting, this one's got partial coil, my wire ran out, so I make some test ones and splice the wire together. That'll be something fun later. But the nitro on the around the magnets that's to insulate that wire so that it doesn't short out. The old CBS era ones, you know, if that insulation on the, like you have poly, heavy foam var, plain enamel, that's just different thickness and kind of affects the tone, and there's a lot of discussions on that. But if that insulation wears through, it's all just 42 or 43 gauge wire. If that wire touches a bare magnet, your pickup's going to short out and die. And once it's wired up, let me get rid of these wires here. This one here, it's a good wire. I have to fix it because the start of the wire, you might be able to see, kind of broke off, so it's a dead coil, but it's a good one, so I'm gonna fix that and be one of the ones that ends up being a giveaway or something. But that's basically it for winding. Well, I guess I'm saying winding a pickup, but I'm not really showing you how to wind a pickup. But what I will go through here, let's do this. So now here's a different coil, just because the other one's been in the nitro. So you have the two eyelets. So this is I'm just gonna, I always cut the vulcanized fiber a little bit smaller than I need, and then I have drill bits that I just kind of tap out to be much more precise. So once I've done that, you can get these little eyelets, if I can show you here, these little pieces right there. See that? And then little eyelet tool. So this goes perfect. These go in the bottom. And there's two, one for the start of the wire, one for the end of the wire. So now I'll show you here. And this bobbin is not pretty. This was just some old fiber that I'm making some pickups that are, you know, not ones I sell, but they'll be like giveaway stuff. As you can see, the bottom is a little retro looking. But now take a bit of a file. You can hear it. Kind of hear that go away. So that smooths out those eyelets so that when you wrap your wire around there, you have a connection. And with all of the bobbins I do, I will just kind of go around the edges because they'll have like little lips, and that's enough that the wire can break off when you're winding. So there's that, and then I'll also do it on the top piece, just enough to take off any nitro that might be out or kind of balled up and made a little sharp edge or something. Usually it's fine, but I do that just in case. So now this one is ready to wind. So in terms of doing an entire video here, let's see what we got here. We got 42 gauge wire. I'm probably not going to be very good at this right now because the lighting is really bad and it's early and I'm tired. But you basically thread that wire through there. Right. So that's one to kind of get it started. Let's just see if I can do a few here real quick. This is not the most exciting thing to watch. Again, really boring stuff, but so one thing I will say is once you get this going, when you thread that through, you probably can't even see the wire. But anyways, you thread it through and then you have your end come out, and then the end you kind of pull through the loop just so it kind of all, like creates a knot. So it's not, otherwise you can pull one end of the wire and it just all unravels. I hope that makes sense. I don't know how I would really show you this part, but you throw that through and then you just kind of pull the wire through the loop. And what I'm doing here is it just creates a curl on the wire so that when I pinch it, I got a nice angle on it that I can find the eyelet hole and just shove it in the hole and then pull that across. So now I'm good there, right? So I'll take my little clippers and I'll just cut that off. So now I have this wire coming off. I don't know if you can see it. It's so thin. This is really, really, really thin wire. Now this that I'm putting it through here, it's just a little jig with some felt that so the wire doesn't flap around and get snagged on something and rip. Goes into this tension control unit. So now from here, I'm just going to turn my winder on. So here, I put that in, and then this is just to lock this. Here, let me just go to here where you can kind of. Sorry, I got some pickups in the way here. Let me just move these out of the way real quick. And again, I'm not editing this video. This is like, as you've seen, just moving the camera around, and it's pretty rudimentary video. These are spacers in terms of the coil height. So I know that this is a 0.50. So this one's a 0.50 as well. So all I do is I put this just on the back. So as I tighten this, there's enough nitro locked in that top bobbin's not, like if I tighten that enough, I'm just going to push that whole top bobbin down and ruin the coil height. And just the slightest increments can change the tone. So I put this in there to ensure that height stays, just so I can get this tight enough the bobbin doesn't wiggle as it's winding. You'll notice some guys are using other types of winders, and they'll have, you know, they'll put sticky tape or something. I've done that years ago with, you know, some of the off-the-shelf winders where you don't have automation replication, which is fine. It works, right? Whatever gets the coil on the pickup and sounding good, because really at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what does it sound like? Because I'm just tone driven, right? I don't care how you get there. It's, can you get there? Can you get a tone you like and have stability and quality? The pickups in my main guitar, I wound in 94, and they're still going, the exact same set. Now my 94 Classics and the Legacies are designed exactly around that. This is a little hard with this, so my hand's a little screwed up here, but I'm going to take that off just so I can get that in there a little bit better. So now, what is going on here? Oh, you know, wait a minute, hold on. See, this is why it's like, why I have it running through there. Trying to talk and think at the same time. It's like chewing gum and walking, right? So anyways, I got it figured out. It was just the wire was running a little funny on me. So in my winder here, there's a hand winding. So this traverse that goes back and forth replicates, you know, somebody hand winding. Now, once I get my wind to where I want it, I save it so that pickup, I can make 100 of them that all sound the same, because they're the exact same scatter, the exact same tension. The problem I had with old winders where I used my fingers was I could have more or less tension on any given day. And what that does, that tension's going to change your inductance, your capacitance, that's going to change your tone. That's why a lot of old Fender pickups, some sounded good, some sounded terrible, because, you know, just think, you know, Johnny comes to work hungover on Monday morning and he's, you know, got less tension, you know, so you might have a more open, airy sounding one than if he was holding tighter another day, right? So in terms of selling pickups, you got to have consistency, because if a guy is going to watch a video and go, hey, I like that, and then you're not going to get that because the scatter and the tension and the winding speed are just slightly different, that's going to sound different. Could be better, could be worse, depends. But in terms of consistency, this machine here, I can hand wind my pickup to the voicing / tone that I want, and then this will replicate that. So for this purpose, we are going to, where did I put that on? So we are going to do, let me just check some inventory stuff here. I'm going to do a 94 Classic bridge. So I have all that programmed in, so hit it in there. I'm not going to show you my settings, obviously, but what I will do is now I can close this ATC. So this here, if I can show you, this here is a tension control unit. And the wire, this kind of pinches the wire to a certain, to a specific gram of pressure, so to speak, right? And then that wire runs into here. It goes through all these little pulleys. And then there's another tension control here. And then that goes out into the winder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse the camera here. And then I'm going to show you in terms of a pre-roll, because now it's all ready to go. So now you should be able to see the winder from my angle. Again, tension control, wire goes out, comes through the pulleys, through this little tension control, and there's the bobbin. So when I hit the pre-start on the machine here, it's going to line up this traverse, you can see, and it gives me a little bit of a start. Get that coil on there so it doesn't snap. Now, if you go in and look, you can see here, it's going the right way, wires around, right? And I have, let's see if I can zoom in a bit. You can see how just off of the magnet, it's not flush with the, hold on, this is so zoomed in. It's not flush with here, it's just a little bit out, right? That's to give a little bit of the spacing. So that's gone around. And when I look at that, I go, okay, that's perfect to where I want it. Okay, so now I can just hit start. So if I hit start, now it's going to wind. And in this winder, I tell it that I'll tell it that this is a 0.4. Like I'll have to say, I'm using a 2.4 millimeter base bobbin, and I have a coil height of 0.450 inches. That's to the bottom of the top, so the machine will know how far to go before it comes back and where it needs to go back and forth. And then in terms of how that wire's laid on, I can set how many turns per layer, how much tension, how fast this winder's going, whether it's going 700 RPM or 1200 RPM, the tension from, you know, let's say 10 grams to 30 grams worth of tension. That can vary per layer too. Then the amount of scatter, maybe I have 100% scatter would be every wire perfectly layered side by side, right? Almost like a consistent wind. Let's say 50% scatter would be half layered side by side, right? So I can program and do, you know, to do certain layer wire turns per layer. It gets a little complicated. I'm just trying to give some insight into like how you can voice a pickup depending on the goal is what do you want this to sound like, and then from the more technical aspects, what do I need to do to get there? How tall is the coil height need to be to help me achieve that? What type of magnets, what type of winding patterns, what type of wire. The insulation type can have different thicknesses, so that can affect how much wire can go on in terms of the output and all these other things that, you know, like you don't even need to care about it. At the end of the day, as a player, it's, you know, really just, you know, what sound are you after, and then just know some basics in terms of like your output and maybe where that resonant frequency sits. Like my honk bass pickups we call them the honks because we went for that honk honk. 1K, so the resonant frequency is around 1K to give bass players that honk. Now some bass players want a smoother sound to play more variety rather than, you know, maybe that the Doobie Brothers, you know, taking it to the streets honkiness. So that's where pickups all sound different. At the end of the day, they're all kind of the same components, so, you know, they are what they are. Anyways, you know, this is going to wind for a bit, and I'm not going to bore you to death. I'm just going to let that wind out. You know, it'll probably take 8 minutes, 10 minutes. And once that's been wound, I'll just show you here, like with a telly one. Once that's been wound, I'm going to set this camera down here. So once that's been wound, you have those two eyelets, right? So you basically just throw some lead wires on there, and the start of the wire is typically the ground, and the end of the wire is typically the hot. Now you can reverse that, you know, when you wind up with unmatched pickups and go to phase, but topic for another day. But you just throw these wires, about 12 inches of wire, put it through there, tin it, solder it in, and then you run it on a little meter just to make sure you've got output, and you're good to go. So we're sitting close to 25 minutes on this. So I'm going to let you all go because, you know, if you made it this far, that's cool. If not, you know, then you weren't interested in how to make a guitar pickup. Anyways, thanks for watching. Subscribe, share, go to thebtone.com. Check it out. I give away pickups every month. Thebtone.com/giveaway. Cheers.